Although Hitler was determined to become an artist, preferably a painter or at least an architect, he was already obsessed with politics at the age of 16. By then he had developed a violent hatred for the Habsburg monarchy and all the non-German races in the multinational Austro-Hungarian Empire over which it ruled, and an equally violent love for everything German. At 16 he had become what he was to remain till his dying breath, a fanatical German nationalist. He appears to have had little of the carefree spirit of youth despite all the loafing. The world's problems weighed down on him. Kubizek later recalled, "He saw everywhere only obstacles and hostility. He was always up against something and at odds with the world. I never saw him take anything lightly." It was at this period that the young man who could not stand school became a voracious reader, subscribing to the Library of Adult Education in Linz and joining the Museum Society, whose books he borrowed in large numbers. His young friend remembered him as always surrounded by books, of which his favorites were works on German history and German mythology. Since Linz was a provincial town, it was not long before Vienna, the glittering Baroque capital of the empire, began to beckon a youth of such ambition and imagination. In 1906, just after his 17th birthday, Hitler set out with funds provided by his mother and other relations to spend 2 months in the great metropolis. Though it was later to become the scene of his bitterest years, when at times he literally lived in the gutter, Vienna, on this first visit, enthralled him. He roamed the streets for days, filled with excitement at the sight of the imposing buildings along the Ring, and in a continual state of ecstasy at what he saw in the museums, the opera house, the theaters. He also inquired about entering the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, and a year later, in October 1907, he was back in the capital to take the entrance examination as the first practical step in fulfilling his dream of becoming a painter. He was 18 and full of high hopes, but they were dashed. An entry in the Academy's classification list tells the story. The following took the test with insufficient results or were not admitted. Adolf Hitler, Braunau am Inn, April 20th, 1889. German, Catholic, father civil servant. 4 classes in high school, few heads. Test drawing unsatisfactory. Hitler tried again the following year, and this time his drawings were so poor that he was not admitted to the test. For the ambitious young man this was, as he later wrote, a bolt from the blue. He had been absolutely convinced that he would be successful. According to his own account in Mein Kampf, Hitler requested an explanation from the rector of the Academy. That gentleman assured me that the drawings I had submitted incontrovertibly showed my unfitness for painting, and that my ability obviously lay in the field of architecture. For me, he said, the Academy's School of Painting was out of the question. The place for me was at the School of Architecture. The young Adolf was inclined to agree, but quickly realized to his sorrow that his failure to graduate from high school might well block his entry into the architectural school. In the meantime, his mother was dying of cancer of the breast, and he returned to Linz. Since Adolf's departure from school, Clara Hitler and her relatives had supported the young man for 3 years, and they could see nothing to show for it. On December 21st, 1908, as the town began to assume its festive Christmas garb, Adolf Hitler's mother died, and 2 days later she was buried at Leonding beside her husband. To the 19-year-old youth, it was a dreadful blow. I had honored my father, but my mother I had loved. Her death put a sudden end to all my high-flown plans. Poverty and hard reality compelled me to take a quick decision. I was faced with the problem of somehow making my own living. Somehow. He had no trade. He had always disdained manual labor. He had never tried to earn a cent. But he was undaunted. Bidding his relatives farewell, he declared that he would never return until he had made good. With a suitcase full of clothes and underwear in my hand and an indomitable will in my heart, I set out for Vienna. I, too, hoped to wrest from fate what my father had accomplished 50 years before. I, too, hoped to become something, but in no case a civil servant.